taxes, and the weekend is goblins, based on Aaron's definition of whatever we were just talking about.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Minds, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week, as we do, saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Guten Abend.
Ruben Bressler.
Guten Tag. Yeah.
I will Guten Tag you. I will note that I am extremely tired for this episode, as my body currently thinks it's like 5 in the morning because I'm still kind of in Germany time, and it's weird. But, you know, that's okay. We're here. We're ready to talk about magic stuff, magical goodness. We're going to get started with our giveaway. The giveaway this week is going to be a copy of Merfolk vs. Goblins, the newest duel deck that does not have Mind's Desire in it.
Yes.
Because that was stupid.
It was brilliant.
Oh, God. It was so not brilliant.
Not brilliant.
It hurt me. It hurt me deep inside.
You know what's a better thing to have is goblins and merfolk, because both of those are things that casual players love.
Absolutely.
The tweet will go out on the 15 minutes after the hour. Ruben, if you can somehow post the link in YouTube, because I never figured it out right.
Okay.
That's what you do. However, we will give away a copy to the lucky winner. If they're outside the U.S., we have to give a gift certificate because rules and regulations and so on and so forth that we don't write. But with that said, we have to get a first pick. And our first pick that I chose there was there were some preview cards shown. Now, there's a lot sort of to cover over the last 2 weeks, but we got some rivals of Ixalan previews before the Pro Tour even. Before Pro Tour Ixalan, we're already learning about new cards in the new set, which is kind of neat. But we learned that from the store championship prizes, at least in part. We'll talk about the other here in a minute. But the store championship prizes were announced on October 30th by Blake Rasmussen, and the champion of the store championship wins a map of Ixalan playmat, which is amazing. I love this thing. Have you guys seen this thing?
Yeah.
It's beautiful, yeah.
It's gorgeous.
It is an absolute amazing playmat. It's tough because, you know, we become jaded on playmats. You know, we got playmats coming out our ears over here. It's nice to see one that not only are they really, really limited, it's not the top 8, it's just the winner gets this playmat, and ideally holds its value because of that.
Yeah. I think that this is a unique take on the playmat. Is it on the screen right now, by the way? I don't know if we're able to show it.
Yes,
I think
it's
it
on
is.
screen.
I have the two chats up, is why I'm not. My computer is you know, held together with duct tape and tinfoil, so I don't want to have the video playing. But the playmat itself being a map, and in the style of the pirate kind of adventure map that we've been used to with Ixalan, is gorgeous. I just love the style. I think it's beautiful, and it's such a unique take on the idea. We get very few things even close to remotely like this in Magic art in general. The only one I can think of is that there's an APAC land that is an APAC island, I think, that is an overtop view of Hong Kong. Is the only thing that's even remotely close to this in terms of Magic art. We get no topographical artistry of any kind, and this is just a super cool example of it. You could even use this as like a map for your Dungeons and Dragons campaign. It's like very detailed, with all the little locations in there, like Azcanta, and all the various, all the various flip lands and artifacts and things like that. It's a gorgeous piece of work.
I think they did a fine job. However, then it got weird, because deck boxes are for the top 8. Deck boxes.
Which is...
Oh, but let me just say, the Vorthoses are losing their minds over those boxes. And who's on that box? I've seen them say that it might be Azor, like the founder of the Azorius Guild.
Right.
I heard rumors, like there was...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, so Azor is somebody that people have suspected as being behind the binding effect over Ixalan right now. And so when that box came out, oh my goodness. I also saw some people speculating that it might be Alhammaret, the Alhammaret from Jason's origin story,
Right.
oh my god, they're losing their minds, and they're finding ways to tie it to Ravnica, and this is the reason why Bolus is making an army, because of a guy known as like the Lord of Whispers or Lord of Secrets, which was in the first Ravnica, and the Perrins, and oh my god, I love it. I love watching the Vorthoses feel their oaths because it's so much fun. And
It's a Sphinx, which we haven't seen on Ixalan yet. This is a big deal that we're kind of moving away from our traditional Adventureland kind of roots.
Well,
and
that,
now
but
we
also
have a more traditional fantasy being.
Well, that, but also the predominant theory going into this was that it was Ugin. You know, there's been a lot of talk of a mysterious winged creature or flying creature in the storyline, and people were sort of assembling the clues that it had to be Ugin. And so this box, while it seems very trivial to some of us, has given the Vorthoses a lot of ammo and really fueled a lot of their theories as to who's really behind, you know, the binding and who's behind Ixalan. And they're moving away from the Ugin theory, and they're moving into other directions, and I think it's fantastic.
Nice.
I think it, well, I mean, based on what you just said, first of all, again, deck boxes? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But aside from deck boxes, it does have some super cool new art, and if it definitely looks like Azor, as you speak of, which probably means the next fall set is Ravnica.
Oh my god.
I mean, why not, right? Like, everyone loves it. They're only going to do one big set, right? So they don't have to try to figure out where every guild goes. They're just like, well, here's a whole bunch of them, and here's a bunch of gold cards, and have fun, and we'll do something else later.
Right. The only set thus far that has had all 10 guilds in it is Dragon's Maze, which was something that I think Wizards of the Coast would like a do-over on. Every other Ravnica expansion has had the guilds separated. Right. So, yeah, I definitely think that they would like a mulligan on that one.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously they could also do 2 big blocks of, you know, 2 big things of Ravnica if they wanted to.
Right.
That's fine too. I mean, who cares? Can
I mean,
we really get enough of
Ravnica? A lot of players would be okay with us never leaving Ravnica.
Yeah, we just Ravnica all day. I mean, not there's anything wrong. That's fine. However, so we got to keep going here because they gave us a preview from Rivals of Ixalan, and that is an Elder Dinosaur, Ghaltra.
Folks.
Ghaltra Primal Hunger is a 2 green, 10 generic mana, 12/12 legendary Elder Dinosaur. It costs X generic mana less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control. Also, it has trample. Because who cares? Why not? And this card is just a Timmy's daydream, because there's not a Timmy in the world who looks at that and says, I'm going to top deck this on an empty board and it's going to suck. No. Everything's going to have your 1-drop white guy that makes the dinosaurs cheaper and the 2-drop red guy that makes them cheaper, and then somehow play Regisaur Alpha and then play a 3-mana 12-12 trample because reasons, and tap the red guy to give a haste. Like, that is, they're on the train. They're wearing the hat. Like, we're going to Magical Christmas Land, y'all.
Well, this is like a reasonable line of play is that you play turn 2 Drover of the Mighty, turn 3 Ripdraw Raptor, and then turn 4 you just have 5 mana and 7 power, even after your turn 2 and turn 3 plays. So like that's not even Magical Christmas Land. That's just a reasonable line. Not to mention the crazy ridiculous play of Drover of the Mighty, get your Regisaur Alpha out on turn 4, and then turn 5 you can play 3 of this guy with haste. Just in case you really wanted Magical Christmas Land, theoretically that is possible to play 3 of the same legendary creature on turn 5.
Right.
But in any case, the most exciting thing to me is the word Elder. I just think that that's adorable that they've gone back to using Elder as a creature type. We had the return of the Elder Dragons, obviously, in Dragons of Tarkir, which we hadn't seen since way back in like the Chronicles days. Right. Is this the 6th Elder creature ever? Has there ever been another creature with a creature type Elder? I don't think Elder Deep Fiend had the creature type Elder. Chat will correct me if I'm wrong. But in any case, this card is something else.
The only cards that have had... The cards that have Elder so far have all been the dragons. Yeah. Chromium, Arcade Sabbath, Nicol
So
Bolas.
We have the 10 dragons.
Dragon Lord of Tarka, Dragon Lord Jamoka. Right. Those were all Elder things, and this is an Elder Dinosaur.
Elder Dinosaur. This is the first non-dragon Elder creature.
Yeah.
Just in case we want to name Elder with our Cavern of Souls. So I'm a fan of this card because just from it existing, I will never cast a copy of this card.
I will always dream about capping.
It exists.
Yes, I will dream about playing it. I know that I will never get to resolve it.
You know what? I might play it in limited. I take it back. I might cast this card in limited, but I will never come to a tournament with this card in my deck box. I personally. Now that's because I'm an old man who doesn't care about fun. So for people who care about fun, 12/12 trample for like 3 mana is going to be awesome.
Right. But all I'm saying is that at this point, there's a reason it costs 12 mana. There's a reason it is expensive as it is, because cost reduction mechanics are always scary. Even if you're able to just play pump spells, I mean, imagine your giant growth essentially gives you 3 mana on top of it with this guy, and that is legitimate.
Turns your giant growths into dark rituals. That's pretty scary.
Which I think is cool. And what I was sort of thinking of was, again, if I'm stuck with like one creature, like give me a medium board. A medium board, if I got one creature and I got one pump spell, can I do enough to get up to actually playing this thing? And then you start asking your question, which all the pros do, which is just like, well, you jump through all these hoops to have this thing that doesn't have haste, it doesn't affect the board immediately, the Dice of Doomblade, that can, that can't be chump blocked, but can be dealt with. You give them a whole turn to fumigate, blah, 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 blah. And so, like, probably just a casual staple, but I love it personally.
I mean, there are multiple ways to give it haste, right? There's Otepec, Huntmaster, and Regisar Alpha, so theoretically you can be attacking with this 12/12 the turn that it comes onto the battlefield, especially if you're building your deck. I mean, both of those cards would already be in dinosaur decks, so it's not completely unreasonable that you would have a way to give it haste immediately. So even if you're getting in for 12 before you get fumigated, that's still quite good, in my opinion. Hopefully you don't get spell swindled. That'd be awkward.
Whoa.
But,
Whoa.
but you know what? They put spell swindle in their deck. You put a 12/12 in your deck. I think we're all on the same page here. It's okay.
That's terrific. But there was another preview that showed up, thanks to the professor who was talking about the open house events. And in it, there was a spoiler in his video for Rivals of Ixalan, and that was Silvergill Adept. So, for those who don't know, Silvergill Adept is a card from Lorwyn. It is a blue and a generic mana for a 2/1 uncommon merfolk wizard. As an additional cost to cast it, you have to reveal a merfolk card or pay 3 additional generic mana. And when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. So 2 mana, 2/1 draw card is above the curve. However, you also have to have that merfolk in hand so you can show it. And if you didn't know, this thing's tournament staple because it's super great. Now, that doesn't mean there's enough merfolk to make it a tournament staple in standard, but it is a tournament staple where merfolk are standard because it is so good at what it does.
Right. Yeah, Silvergill Adept was, I mean, it's a legacy playable card. It's a vintage playable card in certain metagames.
Wow.
Being able to immediately replace itself, obviously great with Ethervile, but most of the time you're able to reveal a Lord of Atlantis or something along those lines. Professor getting this obviously is a nod to his love of the Fishy tribe, and also him getting his Kopala snagged in the last breach of previews. Silvergill Adept is a hell of a card to have in Standard. That is going to go alongside things like Merfolk Branchbender and the rest of the Merfolk, and Kopala, of course, and the rest of the Merfolks that have been printed already. Maybe that makes them Standard playable. We finally get the critical mass of the tribal cards. That's always been the issue with tribal aggro decks, is that you just don't have enough of them through the first couple sets. So as more sets are added, the larger a standard set or the standard rotation gets, the more playable the tribal decks become. And so that's probably what's going to happen here. The card's amazing. As far as I'm aware, Silvergill is a location in Lorwyn, which is weird to me. That we're just calling it Silvergill Adept, which is cool. We don't want to be able to have players play 8 copies of Silvergill Adept in Legacy. That would be a bit too much. So I'm cool with it. I just thought it was interesting that they chose to go with it.
Absolutely, but it is a very powerful card. It was a card that needed reprinting, so yes, it's nice that we get it. I don't expect, Rin Run's Vanquisher to show up. I don't think that's happening, but Silvergill Adept, okay, whatever. It's a type of merfolk, sure.
Right.
But with that said, there were a few more spoilers, not necessarily for new cards, but for new products, because From the Vault Transform is coming, and Bit of a letdown, but let's first talk about the good parts. The good parts is here I have on the screen from the vault, Delver of Secrets, which is the new artwork it has. We don't know what the other side looks like, but the front side looks amazing. And we also have, as I have on the screen here, Huntmaster of the Fails as a female. Yeah. Which is really super cool and absolutely gorgeous image. So
shout out to Magali.
There it is.
Magali, man. Just, like, just when you think she can't do any more, like, you know, you see something like Lycia, and you're like, this is it just can't get any better. How do you top Lycia? And then she comes out with this, and it's just like, how do you do this? Like, I'm convinced, this is my hot take right here, Magali is this generation's Therese. You know what I mean? We're like, and Therese is still alive and kicking, so I'm not trying to like shade her in any way, but like, you know, I feel like in every era there's sort of that artist that's just like, just so good. And Magali is ours. Like, she's just consistently raising the bar, and I just love everything she does.
I mean, I think between like Noah Bradley and Magali, I think those are the two sort of stand out. Like, holy cow, these are some of the biggest. These are gonna be some of the biggest artists of this Magic generation, and it's awesome. We can literally recall the Magic generations. We can go through that one day.
I do want to shout out to Joseph Meehan though, because this new Delver art is pretty great.
Yeah.
And you can tell a Joseph Meehan piece by his hands. If you see the weird, creepy claw hands, that's Joseph Meehan. If you just go back and look up any of his older work, he just always has those cool 3-dimensional, like, creepy knuckle things happening, and you see it super highly featured here on this Delver of Secrets. I'm excited to see what else is in this set. Because we aren't limited only to old Innistrad anymore. We aren't limited to Magic Origins Flip Planeswalkers. Although now with Liliana in this box set and only expecting it to be $40, I think that means that Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, probably stays on the sidelines, which is a little unfortunate. But we certainly get to possibly have the Flip Land that I'm forgetting the name of right now.
Well, you're talking like one from the new one, or from Ixalan,
the Oringarth. No, the 9/7 indestructible haste trample flying.
I can't remember because I'm tired. But it's fine.
But stuff
Westvale
like that.
Abbey.
Westvale Abbey.
Westvale Abbey, yay!
I bet that they could put Westvale Abbey in this set. They could put any number of the cards from Ixalan in this set, probably as well. You know, things like Search for Escata or something like that. So I'm excited to see what else they put in this set, because we haven't had that many transform cards, honestly.
I mean, we've had a fair amount. I mean, you know, if you want to start talking commons and uncommons or whatever, but like ultimately, no. And I think that having Liliana Heretical Healer as like sort of the front and cover, the center card as you open up the set, like there's no way Jace is in this. I just think there's just no way.
I mean, there's probably no chance for Jace. There's very little chance of Archangel Avacyn as well, which is a little unfortunate. You know, we might get something like Arlencord or Bloodline Keeper. You know what I mean? Like a couple of these, like...
Hey, Bloodline Keeper is like $15+ right now. Like, as an EDH player, I would appreciate... Yeah, I would appreciate a Bloodline Keeper reprint.
I love when that happens, when you're like, who cares about this random card? Well, look, it's now like $30. And I'm like, what? That's amazing.
There are some, you know, there's some good flip, like obviously Duskwatch Recruiter sees infinite play in Modern, so there's some good uncommons and commons that they could put in this set. But you're right, there's the headliners here are going to be the 3 that we saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. As of right now, Bloodline Keeper is $17 on Star City Games on sale for $15.29. So yeah, reprint it, please.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, good casual staples are hard to find.
I would be very surprised if Mayor of Avabruck is not in from the Vault Transform, by the way. I think that is the most likely. I mean, if they've got 15 cards in this set, I would put odds on Mayor of Avabruck as the most likely.
Yeah, it's funny, and you know, Seth, you know, our friend MTG Goldfish made this joke first, which was it will transform your $100 into $50. That's what From the Vault does.
Yeah, well done.
You know, which was good because again, had Jace been there, hype would have been insane.
Oh, absolutely.
Hype would have been absolutely insane.
You can't put a Jace in every single promotional product, right? Like we talk about how we see too much of Jace, and then when Jace isn't there, we're like, "Where's Jace?" You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So in this case, it is a little different because we want Jace because it's the most expensive one of the things that could have been in this set, tied with Archangel Avacyn probably.
I mean, it's the best behind Delver of Secrets like in the game as a transform card.
Sure.
But that's
I think
okay.
they could still put, like, I don't know, Thing in the Ice is a flip card that exists that they could put in this. As we mentioned before, Westvale Abbey. I mean, but the problem is that you need to get up to 15 cards for this from the Vault set, which is a lot. We just haven't had that many transform cards in the history of Magic yet, so.
Yeah, that's true. And well, we'll see what they come up with. I mean, obviously the woulda, coulda, shouldas is the endless drone of a Magic player and what we don't have. So whatever.
I'm excited for this new Delver art. I really like this new Delver art quite a bit.
So
and obviously the new Huntmaster art because Magali can do no wrong.
Right. So we're gonna go ahead and move on here to gather the Townsfolk, where we're going to begin with our Pro Tour draft. Now, our Pro Tour draft, I'm going to bring it up here. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a link to this thing in the chats. I think it will let me link it in YouTube. I think so. Yes, it didn't delete it. That's good. So I have it linked in both chats for those who want to follow along at home right now. And I will bring it up on screen for those who are watching right this moment. As determined before the show, Aaron is going first, Ruben is going second, and I'm going third as we snake the draft, which means Aaron gets first pick, Ruben gets second, I get third and fourth, which goes back to Ruben, which goes back to Aaron. So we're going to pick a total of 3 people each, and we will combine their match win points, or their match points together, and which is going to be a nice clean break more than likely.
Now we're back to the Pro Tour. Are we doing teams also, or are we picking a team?
Yeah.
We can definitely do teams if you'd like.
It's up to you.
So is it teams or players?
Well,
currently
we would do
it's players.
3 players. We would do 3 players in 1 team.
Okay.
Now,
I
don't want you to feel locked into taking team card hoarders, Aaron, because
well, I wasn't going to pick them anyways.
All right, fair enough.
Wow.
And also, you'd have
Shade.
to Sophie's choice with your 2 card hoarder teams here. You got Brazil. You've got Original Recipe, and then you've got Extra Crispy. So I didn't want to make you have to between the 2.
Oh, man.
Woo! Extra crispy.
Lord.
Yeah, so that's a thing.
So what do you want to do? Do you want to do teams or not?
We'll do 3 people and 1 team.
Sounds great.
Which I think is fun and good. All right, so that said, Aaron, who is your first pick as a person?
I think it's been long enough. I think he's learned his lesson. I think he knows that you're not supposed to tweet about graveyard hate because that's the last thing this world needs is more people hearing about graveyard hate and thinking it's a good idea. He doesn't have to sleep on the couch anymore. My number 1 choice is Reed Duke.
Wow.
Top 8 competitor at Grand Prix Phoenix. Did you see his haircut?
Right, finalist.
That haircut is adorable. And also check out the t-shirt.
Good.
The t-shirt he was wearing, the Duke Spirits.
The Duke Spirit's nice.
That's fantastic.
You can't do it.
It's okay. They can't see it. It's fine.
Cool.
Ruben, what is your first pick?
All right. Am I picking a player? Am I locked into picking a player?
We're picking players for the first 3, and then our teams last.
All right, sweet. So, Reed Duke is off the board, which honestly I was going to take Reed Duke because he's coming off a 2nd place in a Grand Prix. He is obviously a team member of the current world champion, William Huey Jensen, who just became the world champion not but a month ago. And I'm a big believer in momentum when it comes to this kind of thing going into Pro Tours. I'm going to go with somebody who has a Pro Tour pedigree, who, and most importantly to me, as this Pro Tour isn't immediately after the set release, it's been around for a while. This is a guy who's really well known at developing formats. I'm picking Jerry Thompson.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. You know what? It's great. My picks are so easy. First of all, I'm picking the world champion of Huey Jensen.
Go ahead.
For God's sake, the man is amazing. He crushed that field. I think he's going to do incredibly well. And I'm just go ahead and take the rest of that peach card, no thanks. And I'm going to give me some Owen Tweetenwald up in here. Mr. Owen Turtenwald. Absolutely. I will take those guys. I think they've been practicing their butt off. Obviously, it paid off for Worlds. I think it's going to pay off for this Pro Tour. And I think we're going to see some serious winning from our Peach Garden Oath brethren. But, Ruben, that means you get your 2nd pick.
Boy. Get a 2nd pick, huh? Well, It's really hard to pass up Shota twice. So I'm going to take Shota Yasooka as my second pick.
Okay. Just because sicko?
Just because sicko. Just because too good. Just smarter than everybody. And I don't want to have a complete North American bias on my team. So I'm completely here for having Shota on my roster.
Aaron, who's your number one? Or who's your second pick, rather?
So my second pick is a young man who has come from the table before me. He's had a very, very big year. My second choice is
I'm sorry. I can't. You're seriously tatering now.
Yeah.
Being Brad Nelson's brother, and he's had a fantastic year. And I'm interested to see if he can end the year on as high of a note as when he started. He's just really busted out.
Yeah,
so are we talking about Corey Baumeister? Is that correct?
Corey Baumeister, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I just want to make sure because again, you're in straight tater mode. You've taken over for Ruben this week. You're like, give me that tater. He's like, here's the tater. Tater was passed. But Aaron, that also means you get another pick, your last pick of the individuals. See, she's tatering so hard. I think I got her pick wrong.
Oh, man.
Did someone decide to stream all of a sudden on where you live?
I'm also going to pick somebody else from Team.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry. So my last choice is going to be just Sean.
Wow. I'm sorry. You want to say it again because we're tatering, man.
Sorry. My last choice is going to be Sean McLaren. Sean McLaren isn't known for being on teams, and this is the first time that I'm aware of that he's going to be with a team, and I think that's fantastic.
Fair enough. All right. So Corey Baumeister, Sean McLaren, and Reed Duke are your team. All right. Ruben, what is your final choice?
I'm going to pick somebody who recently, I think it was quoted, somebody was quoted, one of the Platinum Pros was quoted as saying he would be Platinum every year if he lived in the United States or Japan. But he lives in New Zealand, so he has an outside shot of it every year. I'm picking Jason Chung. He's been a Platinum Pro in the past. He's on Team Mint Card. He's a fabulous, fabulous Magic player. I've played against him in the past. He's just a super nice dude as well. And he's a threat to win every tournament that he plays in. He's a limited powerhouse. And he's got a really good mind for just how to navigate games that he's in. So that'll be my pick, Jason Chung.
Wow. Man, you guys make it so easy for me. It's so easy. I guess I'll just pick Brad Nelson because Brad is pretty friggin' good at that standard thing, and I always like his chances no matter where he's at. So let's see. So Mr. Brad Nelson's going to go in here, which also means I will go ahead and reveal my ridiculous North American bias, and I will take Team Genesis as my choice for the team. Which means, Ruben, what is your team choice?
Well, I didn't get to pick any of the team members from Peach Garden Oath, so I guess I'll just take all of Peach Garden Oath as well as 3 of the greatest Magic players to have ever walked the earth. I'll take Ultimate Guard.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Team Ultimate Guard is going to be my
It's going to be a sicko. Like, that whole team is just stacked.
Yeah.
It's insane. That said, Aaron, what is your team choice?
Okay, I closed out a couple windows, so hopefully this goes a little more smoothly. But since we're just saying to hell with it and picking stacked teams, I want Channel Fireball. Yeah. I had a very lovely conversation with Paulo the other day. He's been doing a really great job on coverage. LSV is back in the game, which is something people have been looking forward to for a while. Yep. He took that year off to sort of do coverage and go behind the scenes, and LSV's back. He's having none of it. And he just grabbed like 5 of his best friends and was like, let's do this. And so Raptor, Ben Stark, Mike Sigrist, also known as Brad Nelson 2.0, right. Martin Yuza. You just can't lose with this team. Like, it's got to be Channel Fireball.
Yuza can't lose it, you know what I'm saying?
And Yuza's also surprisingly tall. Like, when I tend to meet Magic players, they're usually shorter than I expected. Oh no, Yuza I had to like look up for.
This is an interesting, because you brought this up, I'm going to go off on a slightly weird tangent. Please indulge me for about 30 to 45 seconds.
Oh boy.
Okay.
I was talking with, I think Evan might have even been there for this conversation. I was talking with Patrick Chapin, maybe actual 10 years ago, at least 5 years ago. And he was talking about how the average Magic player is taller than the average person. And more than that, the average
this sounds so much like a
grinder,
Chapin argument.
I know, it's crazy. The average PTQ grinder is taller than the average Magic player. And the average PTQ winner is taller than the average PTQ grinder. And the average GP winner is taller than the average PTQ winner. And so on and so on and so on, to the point where he was like, and then if you take the average height of the Hall of Famers, it's just like several, like almost like 6 inches taller than the average population. Which, if you look at the Hall of Fame, isn't that ridiculous? Once you look at it from that angle, because you've got Juza, you've got Huey, you've got John Finkel, you've got Kai, you've got, you know, when I was staying in Ireland with, at the time, TeamStarCityGames.com, the shortest player on the team was Owen, and he's 5'11".
That's
absurd.
Amazing.
Out of 13 people. It was crazy.
So you're basically saying that Magic players are like Russian dolls, where like you open up a Hall of Famer and there's a GP grinder, and then you open up a GP grinder and there's a PTQ grinder? Like,
yeah.
Right.
We've got the, what are those? The Etruscan nesting dolls?
They're the nesting dolls. You just put one inside the other. So for those who aren't like 6'4" or taller, sorry, you can't win a Pro Tour.
Sorry.
That's the rules. They made them.
You can go crush the standard showdown at your local game store.
Yep. Marshall now best player ever, thanks to our chat here, which was great. But you know that sounds like one of the most Chapin-y conversations you'll have.
It's pretty. It was quite Chapin-y.
I love it. Because you'd always be like, "What is this weird thing?" And could you look at it in this strange lens that you've never looked at it? Chapin. That's how that one works. Okay, so those are our teams. We're gonna have Aaron has Reed Duke, Corey Baumeister, Sean McLaren, and Team Channel Fireball. Ruben has Jerry Thompson, Shota Yasuka, Jason Chung, and Ultimate Guard, while I have Huey Jensen, Owen Turtenwald, Brad Nelson, and Team Genesis. So it's going to be really fun and interesting going into this Pro Tour. This is also this Pro Tour that hasn't followed, you know, the standard.
Right. That's what's most interesting to me.
Years and years.
This is going to be the first Pro Tour that isn't 2 to 3 weeks after the release of a set. This is far later of a Pro Tour than we've seen in a very long time. And I don't know exactly how long, but it's been since the most recent rotation update, since they did away with block Pro Tours. It's been at least that long.
Yeah, and if anybody in chat knows how long it's been, I would love to know, because I don't know right off the top of my head. I want to say it's been at least 10 years, but I can't be 100% certain on that. Yeah. I just know that it's been a long time, and it's time to see what happens now that, like, yes, Teamer Energy did its thing. Yes, there are more things you can do in Standard. What are you going to do in a field of 400 plus versus a field of 24?
I'm hoping for Dreamcaller Sirens, because otherwise, boy, that pie bet's happening.
Pie bet. It's going to be so good. All right, so moving on here, we're going to talk a little bit about the changes to the Grand Prix events in Magic for 2018. There's promos, there's schedules, and there's the day 2 cut. I'm not going to talk about the schedule. The schedule's huge. However, they are coming. There's GP coming back to Orlando next August.
I was just going to say, I have one thing to say about the GP schedule. Has anyone ever been to Orlando in August? And if so, why are you in charge of making why are you making me go to Orlando in August?
Because you will melt, but it's okay, because most Floridians get air-conditioned space to air-conditioned space. That's how we live.
That's how Vegas works too. It's just, you know, it's better to go in like March.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's better to go right now. You know, the weather outside right now, absolutely amazing.
Sure, put your August Grand Prix in Montreal. Or Seattle, and put your November Grand Prix in Orlando. I'm happy with that.
Oh man, yeah.
They don't know the globe anymore.
All I'm saying is, you know, you're going to go to a big air conditioned space. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, but you're going to sweat your butt off getting into it.
Correct.
That said, I think that's cool, but they did change some things, because years ago, there was a big sort of to-do about, like, well, there's not enough people making day 2. There's not enough people who they did okay or they did well in their first GP, but they don't get that day 2 experience. Well, they're kind of pulling back on that a little bit, in that for constructed events, 6-2 is good enough to make day 2, and then we'll do the rest of the rounds on Sunday and then to the top 8. For limited, because they have to do a drafts on day 2, they're going to make it a little bit different, where you're going to do sealed for 8 rounds, and whoever 6 and 2 is going to make the cut to day 2 guaranteed. However, they're going to play a 9th round with their sealed deck. So that's really strange, but it cuts down on God knows how many extra drafts of people who have no chance of top 8ing on day 2. That's a thing. And otherwise, the GP promo for the Grand Prix in 2018 is Mutavault. So I'm going to go down here, and so you guys can see it right now. The Mutavault is on the screen. It looks beautiful. Sure, it's no full art craziness like I used to have, and many certainly do. But it is gorgeous. I think it will be worth plenty of dollars. Far more exciting than like a Progenitus, in my opinion. Very, very playable, no matter what.
Although those promo Progenituses are quite a hefty sum still. So.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They still go for at least 50, I think.
Wow. Well, there you go. So. That shows me for crapping on Progenitus.
No, I mean it's still it's still not ideal. Like I'd still have the Gristlebrand promo. There's still a group called the I think it's called the Gristlebrand Fantasy Draft League that started when the Gristlebrands were the GP promo, and it was a football fantasy league where the buy-in was one Gristlebrand promo.
Wow.
And so the winner just got a stack of Gristlebrand promos. In any case, this is Mutavault is obviously a great one. The schedule change, or not the schedule change, the 6 and 2 change is interesting to me. On the one hand, I'm for it. On the one hand, 6 and 2 is a lot better of a number of a barometer to make than either 7 and 2 or 6 and 3. I think that 6 and 2 is the right number. The problem is that the number of people that are going to forget their sealed deck at home for the 9th round.
No, you play the 9th round at night. You play the round 9.
Oh, you play the 9th round at night?
Yes, on that same day. You just play an extra round.
Okay, so day 2 starts at the end of day 1. Right. I understand. I thought that you had to bring it back the next day.
Right, no, you do not.
My bad. Then yeah, that's great. This is a great change. I think 6 and 2 makes a lot more sense than, like I just said, than either of the other records. It makes draws even worse, though, on day 1, which is super awkward. So 5-2-1 used to have a shot at things, or sorry, 5-1-1 used to have a shot at things. This is going to be a lot more difficult for the 5-1s and people who get early draws. But I prefer this change, and I think that this is a good step.
So on the screen right now, we have the RPTQ promo of Noble Hierarch, a bit of a different angle, which is cool. This one done by Matt Stewart. I think it looks really, really sweet. So for those who are able to attend their RPTQs, you get an awesome promo that is going to be worth plenty of dollars to take home.
Yeah, isn't this the most expensive card in Modern? For
if not
close. The most expensive, not the most expensive, but like.
Speaking of expensive, Ruben, I hate to tell you, buddy, that GP Progenitus is about $3.50.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I thought I saw a promo Progenitus on sale for $50 like last week. Maybe it's maybe there's a different promo.
No, you can put whatever you want.
Promo?
I think there's a Judge promo.
Okay, that might have been what I'm talking about. In that case, it's a bit of a swing and a miss.
I'm looking for it now, and that may not be the case. In terms of. It was from the Vault Legends. That one's worth 14, and that's kind of where you're at. Kind of is what it is.
I'm working off of wrong information.
I mean, you can put things on sale for whatever price you want to. It's
true.
Really what people are actually buying, as it turns out. But that said, we're going to move on here to Desperate Ravings. And Aaron, could you tell me a little bit about this article you wanted to highlight about bans, unbans, and restrictions in Legacy and Vintage?
I'm going to try. Hopefully my internet doesn't fail me. I'm so sorry. I feel really bad about this. But so I was at Eternal Weekend a couple weeks ago, and Vintage Workshops had a really big coming out party where there were 5 copies of Workshops in the top 8, and that really reignited the discussion about whether or not Mishra's Workshop should get restricted, because it feels like it's sort of the elephant in the room where Wizards is trying to ban everything but Workshops to avoid having to try to restrict Workshops. And I'm sorry, I get my restricted and banned unbanned terminology confused. We have restrictions. And Bob Wong, who is a Eternal expert, posted an article to Channel Fireball that really delved into what goes into making these decisions, and goes on to say what he thinks are some unbans that are safe, or some bans that need to happen. And I really like this, and I really wonder, I would really like to see some more transparency in terms of making those decisions, and I think Wizards has done a good job trying to do that. But I really wonder if what Bob was talking about is true, like if this is what goes into those decisions, and if any of these things will come true in the future.
I mean, this, if anything, Mishra's Workshop is 100% the brainstorm of the Vintage format. Mm-hmm. It is the card that is the gentleman's agreement. It is the card that is clearly busted, like so obviously busted. Why are you letting people still use this thing? But they're like, yeah, but they got their toys and it's worth a lot of money, and let's not kind of screw it up. Where Brainstorm is like, well, they have all these fetch lands and they like to play blue. Right. Let's not sort of crap all over that.
As Bob mentions in his article, both Brainstorm and Mishra's Workshop are problematic cards, but their heritage and Magic history earn them a place in their respective formats. Is his opinion on those two and their places in their in Vintage and Legacy.
So now it's about kind of keeping that heritage. Is that what we're trying to say?
Yeah. That's right.
I don't know. I think one thing that really fascinates me, and I discovered this coming out of Eternal Weekend. It was fascinating to me as a Dredge player to see the difference in how people react to Dredge doing well and how they react to shops doing well. So going into the weekend, Dredge was sort of seen as the boogeyman of Vintage. I was running into players that were bringing in 10 cards against me, which I'm used to like 5 or 6 pieces of Graveyard Hate, maybe 7 pieces if they're really gunning for me, but everybody was ready for Dredge that weekend. And I feel like when Dredge does well, it's seen as sort of like a break the glass, hit the red button, this can't happen kind of moment. And I feel like when Shops does well, you see the opposite. You see people sort of throw up their hands and say, well, what do you want us to do? You know, you don't see an increase in Ingot Chewers or Hurkyl's Recalls or Stony Silences or Nature's Claim. I have main decked an Ingot Chewer. I am not too proud to do that. But I'm fascinated by just the difference in how people deal with these decks. And I do feel like, you know, there are some changes in deck building that could maybe happen. I am in favor of a Workshops restriction, but for very different reasons. But, you know, I do wonder, you know, why people are so much more passionate about fighting Dredge than they are fighting Workshops. And I hear people blame Sphere and blame Thorn, but that feels a lot like Dice to Doomblade kind of arguments, where it's like, well, we're just not even going to bother. And it's like, well, you don't see Reanimator players stop playing Reanimator because Death Right's a thing. You don't see Storm not play Storm because Thalia's a thing. You know, you power through it, or you try to bring in answers. And I just don't understand why I don't see that level of determination when it comes to Shops doing well.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a lobbying arm for Shops that begins with B and ends with Euler, and probably, you know, may or may not have the ear of certain people and be like, hey, can I keep playing with my broken toys because I like my broken toys, even though they're clearly broken. I mean, I'm of the opinion to try different things and to shake things up. And, you know, there has been bannings and unbannings, or restrictions and unrestrictions. Like, you know, they even gave you back Grave Troll there for a while in Modern, and they were like, whoa, let's put that genie back in, you know, like,
right. And
that was a thing they did. I'm more than happy to see a Legacy world without Brainstorm. I really am. I think it would be interesting at the very least. And if it turns out to be interesting and bad, or interesting and no one shows up, you just turn the faucet back on and go, okay, guys, right. Oops, you know, we went, 3 months, 4 months without the card. Yeah. Like, the world's not going to end, and I bet decks will get a lot more interesting.
Especially with these old formats, I think that Wizards of the Coast can be a lot more helter-skelter with their bannings and unbannings. I think that they can afford to be like, all right, we're going to unban something for 6 months. We're going to unban Frantic Search in Legacy for 6 months just to see what happens, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna restrict Workshop for 3 months. We're going to ban Deathrite Shaman for 3 months. We're just going to see what happens, because you can flip those knobs. You know, you can turn those knobs and flip those switches for these older formats, and that's exciting. I think that that's interesting. That's a lot more like what Hearthstone does when they change their cards and what the cards do around. You know, the card Unleash the Hounds has changed 4 different times since Hearthstone's been a game for less than 4 years, I think. So why not give it a shot? Why not unban Mind Twist, right? Just give it a shot. You know, what's it really going to hurt? As Bob Wong suggests, and I always suggest, let's see what happens when Earthcraft comes back into Legacy. I think that there's no problem with giving them chances. And I completely agree with Aaron on the topic of there isn't enough Shops hate. But the problem is that Shops hate and Graveyard hate are so different, because Graveyard hate is remove their entire graveyard from the game, and none of the Shops hate is destroy all artifacts.
Not for cheaply, or not cheap enough, and it's like
not cheap enough,
right? And like, go ahead and ban Mixer's Workshop, and then unban all the things you had to, unrestrict all the things you had to restrict because you wouldn't restrict Workshop. Give them all those thorns, give them all the lodestone golems. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'd be fine with that. I mean, you still got like an overgrown tomb. You still got a City of Traders. Like, if we're gonna restrict fast mana, like the Moxes and the Lotus, let's restrict fast mana. Just see what happens. Maybe don't do it during Legacy Championships or Vintage Championships, but for the rest of the year, I see no problem with being a little bit more experimental.
So that's sort of kind of where we're at here. Aaron, do you have any more thoughts on this one?
No, I think I kind of hit the nail on the head, and it does seem like the meta is responding well. Like, there was a vintage challenge this past weekend, and Shops didn't seem nearly as dominant, and it does seem like people have also eased up on their graveyard hate. So it does seem like the meta is kind of adjusting itself, and so I hope that this trend continues. It's
the beauty of the card games that we play, in that the meta game keeps moving based on what's doing well, you know. So-and-so just put a new target on its back, and then the old target is wearing off of the other deck, and then it'll show up, and then so on and so forth. You want that cyclicality, or cycling sort of feel of, we're moving through these ideas, we're moving through these colors and decks. But I feel like there's a lot of repetition in terms of like what is the best deck at any one moment, and to make that interesting and unique, and for Wizards to be able to do things like print cards that work really well in older formats are nice to be able to shake up that type of thing.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get to an old worn wheel that Lord knows we've spoke enough about.
It's that time of the year again, everyone.
Every 2 years we get to bring this back, y'all.
Some poor soul writes a Women in Magic article, and then we talk about it.
Well, Daniel Fournier on ManaDeprived.com wrote the Men and Magic Building Community article, which, of course, it seemed pretty standard stuff, you know.
Yeah. The article itself was not anything. I didn't think. Then again, I'm not the one who has an opinion here.
Well, I mean, I think ultimately what it was talking about was, there's not a lot of women in sort of pro Magic. There's not a lot of women in high level Magic. Our competitive community is still overwhelmingly toxic. There's the girlfriendification. I mean, there's the girlfriend bracket, for God's sakes. Aaron built a whole podcast around it. Yeah. Lord knows we've been in this before. And here comes Sperling. All right. So, Matt Sperling.
I want to briefly thank Matt Sperling for taking everybody's attention off of my Twitter account at the time. So, I want to thank Magic the Gathering's Devil's Advocate personally for his efforts in alleviating my personal headaches at the time. But boy, the devil doesn't always need an advocate, Matt Sperling.
No.
Well, the problem is that he builds this sort of allegory of, what if there were a bunch of schools in a district and one of the schools wasn't doing very well, and because the reason they weren't doing very well is because they didn't have the equipment that everybody else has, and if they only could have the equipment, then they could do well. And the whole point is not the tools, man. The whole point is, what if someone was making fun of those players nonstop? What if those people what if the Acme school tried to play football with equipment, with great equipment, with bad equipment, but were constantly condescended to, and or made fun of, or made embarrassed, or just sort of talked about in a really demeaning way over and over and over and over again. It's the emotional impact that he just literally completely ignores. He's like, well, obviously, the problem with women in Magic is they don't have the testing teams, or they don't have the decks. It's like, no. I mean, and I'm not trying to talk too much for women out there, but Lord knows we've been down this road, and it's almost always, it's that they feel things. It's an emotional thing. It's not a physical. It's not like they don't have enough money to play Magic. It's not like they can't get there with their cars or Ubers or transportation. It's that they don't feel comfortable. It's about feelings. And instead, Matt wrote this whole thing about how, like, well, if everyone just had the same equipment, bop-a-dop, it's like, no, dude. It seemed like a very sort of, you know, it hit a wrong note and didn't make a lot of sense to me that he spent that much time to build up this sort of analogy, allegory, whatever, of, you know, what if these schools couldn't compete because of X? No, what if one of the schools was ridiculously ridiculed nonstop and they didn't want to play anymore because they felt like, you know, they couldn't do anything without being under a ridiculous microscope or made to feel bad about it.
Yeah, it was frustrating for me because it really boils down to the simple tenet of just listen to women. There were women responding to his thread, responding to my thread, and him and Tom Martell are rubbing their swords together trying to start a fire when there are actual women in the thread going, hello, I'm trying to tell you what my experience is. I'm trying to tell you what I've seen in this game. And they're like, it reminds me of this tweet that went viral a couple weeks ago where it was like, man, women are so hard to figure out. What do they want? Woman, I'll tell you. And then the man says, I don't know, what do they want? And it's like, they're trying to tell you, like, just listen to women. I thought Daniel's article was actually quite nice. You know, I think that we need more support from men. I think that with women, there tends to be this feeling of preaching to the choir. We need the LSVs. We need the Ross Merriams. We need the Daniel Fourniers to come out and say, I see you. I understand what you're going through. How can I help? I think that's a really good thing. I did think it was really interesting that people criticized him for using the Pro Tour as a thermometer for success or to determine how far we've come. You know, when I was doing the girlfriend bracket, you know, I went into the show thinking that a lot of the problems that women were facing were at the GP level, were at the open level. And through doing the show, women started coming up to me at events, women started emailing me their stories, and I actually found out that we were losing a lot of them at the local game store level. You know, it was dirty bathrooms, it was the obnoxious play mats, it was literally being harassed and having store owners be either unable or unwilling to do anything about it. We were hearing from women that were doing well competitively. They were qualifying for Pro Tours, they were winning, you know, PTQs, and then they would come home and not get invited to play test groups. They wouldn't be able to get rides to events despite everybody around them being included in these sessions. And so it was an overwhelming feeling at the local level. And so it's really nice that you can look at the Pro Tour scene and say, well, we're not like that. You know, you have the example of the Levine bell curve of how, you know, the higher you get, the more civilized your opponents are. And that's wonderful. I don't think you should change that. But we're losing women at the local level here. And I think we really need to address, you know, why that is, why we're not seeing them at the Pro Tour level. It's because of that bottleneck of this is where we're losing them. And that needs to be the focus here.
Go ahead, Ruben.
Sorry, I was just going to add that this is not new, but I've recently come across an article that was written well over a decade ago by Kevin Smith of you know, Jay and Silent Bob fame, who is a comic book store owner himself, who wrote an article about how comic book stores are subconsciously designed to make people not want to go into them. Mm-hmm. They don't want your money, and they do things like have a really dark, dingy, blocked windows, make it look like a cave. When you come in, they're sort of aloof and don't really help new people coming in because this is their space.
Their clubhouse.
And so, yeah, it's the clubhouse aspect.
Right.
And you know, we've been trying to fight against that as Magic players who want to expand the community. You know, I think it's pretty disingenuous to think that women don't make up a lot. You know, especially when people like Mark Rosewater come out and say that a large percentage of the Magic playing base is women, and then men are just like, but I don't see them in our spaces. And then it's just like, well, you don't have to go very far to see like a parallel culture. You know, who do you think is buying all of these R.A. Salvatore and Brandon Sanderson fantasy books? Like, it's not all dudes buying these books about Driz Duerden and who are wanting to, you know, take part in fantasy and sci-fi cultures. It's not that big of a stretch. So I don't see why everyone's so aghast and everyone's so surprised when people are like, oh man, women want to be a part of Magic the Gathering. It's not surprising. And so whenever I see a reaction to, whenever this topic comes up, we always have this same conversation. And so whenever anyone is surprised by that conversation, it takes me aback and been like, where have you been all this time?
Let me give you a different perspective. Because, you know, I work at Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. has a relationship with the Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is the largest board gaming YouTube channel that exists right now. And they do reviews of board games, and they talk about board games, and there are sort of video casts and all that good stuff. Well, they've been doing a podcast for like 10 plus years, you know, called the Dice Tower. And, you know, they have an episode every single week. Well, there was a change recently where the regular hosts, Tom Vassell and Eric Summerer, and I think there was one more who I can't recall, and they stepped away from the podcast half the time. And in their space, they put in two ladies, Suzanne Sheldon and Mandy Hutchinson.
I love Suzanne. I follow her on Twitter.
Yeah, and they're both terrific, awesome people. I've met them. They're amazing, and they're funny, and they're great. And they sort of, you know, they take over the show. They kind of take the reins for half the time. Well, that was not cool. And people were just losing their mind. What does a girl know about board games? I mean, like... It was ridiculous, to the point where Tom Vassell goes on one of his programs and says, look, if you got a problem with Suzanne and Mandy or you know, women on a podcast or women on the Dice Tower, he's like, I don't want your views. I don't want your time. I don't want your money. Just go on. Like, if that's where you're drawing this weird imaginary line that, you know, the gender says you can't X, like, come on. That's ridiculous. Yeah. But it happens in other hobby sort of communities. This is not just a magic thing.
Now, I will say, on a more positive side, that the show GM Tips, which is Game Master Tips for folks who want to run games like Dungeons & Dragons, used to be hosted by Matt Mercer, now is hosted by Satine Phoenix, who went from a male host to a female host, and that went very smoothly, from what I understand. Now, it helps that Satine is, you know, top 10 dungeon masters on the planet, but it is a counterexample to that. But you're right. The vast majority of the time in gaming, and particularly in Magic, I mean, this is the subculture that we're most plugged into, so we have the most experience with this. This is like the 4th or 5th time we've had to talk about this on this show, which, you know, we're going to keep talking about it until it's not a horrendous issue anymore. In this particular time, though, it was the Sperling article. It was the reaction to the Fournier article that was so off the wall. It was bizarre to me.
It was really weird.
It was also frustrating.
It's when keeping it real goes wrong.
It was also frustrating to see the people who surrounded him, and we were very quick to sort of defend that. And, you know, I do want to end the topic on a couple of high notes. You know, I do feel that every time we talk about this topic, though, I do feel like we get a little closer to where we need to be. Athena did a really nice video on this, Elantris. You should definitely go check that out. And, you know, she mentions that we as a community, we do deserve a bit of a pat on the back. The fact that we have, you know, 2 women on the VSL right now, the fact that we have Maria and Megan killing it in coverage right now, the fact that Gabby is one of the biggest streamers out there right now and getting all these sponsorship opportunities. And, you know, we have done fantastic work. You know, Melissa and Jackie literally making sets, Ali Medwin working on the Magic Online side of things. We have a lot to be proud of right now. And so I think that deserves some sort of mention. And Haruruya Hopes. Haruruya just announced a new initiative today called Haruruya Girls, where they're going to be reaching out to women. They've signed a Japanese young lady and a Mexican young lady who make content. And so we have a lot to be proud of. I think we've done a lot of work, and I feel like every time this topic comes around, there is growth there. And that's just sort of what I'm happy to see.
Well, I mean,
I also wanted to point out Married to the Game.
Absolutely.
Which is Athena's podcast that she also does with Miss Mulligan and Jamie Topples. So you guys can, that's at MTTGMTG, which is one of my favorite hashtags, or one of my favorite
I think it's fabulous that we went from a show about girlfriends, we had like the girlfriend bracket, to a show about wives. It was like, I love that, and I hope it goes back around, and not necessarily with these 3, but I would love it if like 5 years from now we had 3 different women that were like the first
divorcees of the game.
Yes,
that'd be amazing.
Like they have basketball wives, like they have this VH1 reality shows.
Would be so funny.
Oh my God, it would be insane. That would be ridiculous. So Either way, I mean, I think it's important to bring up. I think this also just calls back to, like, you know, when I was going to PTQs, those were some of the worst people ever. Like, they just have the worst attitudes. They treat people like crap. Everything's elitist. Everything is, you know, this guy is trash. This guy is terrible. This is a scrub. This is a nobody, blah, blah, blah. And then once you got to the Pro Tour, when I went to the Pro Tour the first time, I was like, everybody's nice. This is weird. I've never seen a bunch of good Magic players not treat each other terribly. Like, and that had to happen.
There is a weird uncanny valley point in competitive Magic that you have to get past before you get to the nice folks like LSV and everybody at the Pro Tour.
Exactly.
It is weird.
Even communities, you know, I feel like the vintage community has been so good to me since I started, and you know, I feel like a lot of times with standard, there's sort of this, there's this anxiety there where it's like I got to get play points, I got to win buys, I got to win this GP, and I feel like when you get to the older formats, there's less of that. You know, you're actually playing with adults, dare I say?
I do agree with that. Where it just seems like, you know, everybody gets hung up on certain things, and then the vintage community just doesn't get hung up on anything.
Yeah,
like they're just nonplussed by literal everything.
Yeah.
So so thankfully, I guess unthankfully, I screwed up the setup of the giveaway, but it doesn't matter.
Oh.
I made it for a month instead of for an hour, but you know,
wow,
whatever. Who cares? Things happen. Okay, sure, whatever. I'll pick a winner. We'll talk about them here shortly. That said, there was something that came out from Wizards, and this is one of those, like, man, you ever feel like the corporate's laid on thick? The corporate is slathered on this one. It is awkward as all get out. There was a statement on Ixalan double-faced cardstock, where Wizards noted that a number of non-foil double-sided Ixalan cards, and by a number, I mean, well, a number as in every single double-faced card could be effective. A number being nothing they're going to define for you, so we have no idea. But let's keep going.
Plausible deniability, yeah.
English, Portuguese, Spanish, Chinese traditional, Chinese simplified, and Korean were mistakenly printed on incorrect cardstock. What they're trying to tell you is that they don't pass the light test. There is a blue piece of paper inside every Magic card, except some of these, because they screwed up and printed the wrong thing. And so
I have a Magic card. If you got one near you, I'm looking for one near my desk just in case.
Well, I got one, but that, you know, so we have here. Check it out. I got me
I'm looking for
fellow
one
our
that's
sovereign just hanging out.
Rip in half is what I'm looking for.
Wow, I don't know if I could do that. I got a shimmering glass kite. I could do some of that right here.
Well, you can see. I mean, it's a test that you can. The only true test that you can do to tell if a card is truly going to pass the light test is rip it in half and look for the blue in the middle.
Sure. I mean, there's also the magical bend test.
Right, which is also very similar to the witch test, which is if you throw a woman in the water and she sinks, she's not a witch, but then she's dead. So once you rip your card up, then you can't play it anymore. But in any case, some of these wouldn't pass that test.
Well, some of them just didn't have that layer. So you know, you can pass a light through a card, and if you see a sort of a blue tint there, that's passing the test. And these can't. But here's the problem: they don't tell us anything about this problem. They just say, yes, they still have the stamp, the full stamp. Yes, they are real Magic cards. You know, if you find them in tournaments, they're not necessarily immediately counterfeits. And we're talking every one of them. The Legion's Landing, Search for Viscanta, Arguel's Bloodfast, Vance's Blasting Cannons, the whole bit. If they're double-faced, that could be a problem. Now, and I noted in the Reddit thread, at Cool Stuff, we immediately said, whoa, you know, and we found some. And it didn't take that long to find some who would fail this test. However, when we found one of the flip cards we had a pretty high stock on, you know, which I felt was a decent data set, we found about I think it was 2% to 3% of an error rate, which means
that sounds about right.
2 to 3% did not have the blue in the middle, did not pass the light test.
It seems to me that they just printed it on the token stock, right, by accident, because the tokens don't have Magic card backs either.
Sure.
Right?
I don't know if they passed the light test. I can imagine they would, honestly.
Oh.
I don't know.
I didn't think that. Sure.
But
that was my assumption of what happened here. But in any case, this is very corporate speak. I certainly love that the press release begins with the words "a number," as if you could get more vague. But yeah, this is a little weird. It's just something worth knowing.
Okay, so tokens did not pass the light test. Thank you very much for the chat on that one. So that said, again, this is This is like classic WotC. This is this crap that they told us they're going to stop doing, which are these weird, like generic, nondescript, can't tell you exact details because reasons, and if you got problems, talk to our helpline, which will also not tell you any specifics because they can't tell you specifics, and it also feels like it's very close to something lawyery. This feels lawyery, like their lawyer said, hey, you say the minimum amount that you have to. There was a thread on Reddit that showed up, and I don't, and if that thread on Reddit had not shown up, maybe this A wouldn't have been caught or B would have been, sort of talked about. And I think it really leads into sort of my next links here, which there was 2 videos from Tolarian Community College over the last couple of weeks. One on particular on cardstock quality and consumer confidence, where like the cards kind of feel like they're getting a little flimsy. They're getting a lot worse. They're bending. They're not as sturdy or durable as the old cards used to be. And if anything, they do, he was just, the professor was like, can you just acknowledge it? Can you just say that we're not crazy? Because we would like to know we're not crazy. And we understand that maybe it's going to take a while to fix these things or whatever. Maybe there's not a fix involved. Maybe you're still investigating it. But could you just tell us we're not insane?
Yeah.
Right. The bottom line for me was basically that, I mean, a video for me would have been a bit too much, but obviously it's Tolarian Community College and that's how he expresses himself. So obviously that's what he's going to do. And yeah, the bottom line for me is, why isn't there a statement? Just even something as vague as this would be acceptable to me. And yeah, I'm totally with the professor on this. I think that the fact that there hasn't been any sort of statement is worse than any statement that could come out about it, I think.
Yeah, I just feel like this is a thing that should be talked about. It's a thing he brought up. It's definitely been on Reddit multiple times, and I've seen multiple tweets about it. Even Saffron Olive was just like, hey, here's these cards I opened, at the pre-release, and now they're all like foiled up or kind of bent up and warped, and here's this card from the dark.
Wait.
That's fine.
Is Saffron Olive saying he went to a pre-release?
I believe that was the intention, yeah.
Do we have photographic evidence?
We do not.
I want evidence of that. That's what I want. That's what I want to say.
We're still not sure if Saffron Olive is real, but
is a human person. If anyone can provide photographic, non-blurry, I don't want any of this Zapruder film crap where we've got Bigfoot blurry out in the woods of the Adirondacks. I want solid 1080p photographic evidence of Seth Saffron Olive
holding up a sign with today's date.
Today's newspaper.
Not even that. I just want proof that he's not just 6 Danish orphans in a trench coat. That's what I want. Sitting on each other's shoulders. Hi, everyone.
That's how I used to go to rated R movies. I was left leg. The rest of the rascals would stack up on top of me.
Oh my God. Man. Well, look.
That's how I used to go to movies too.
All right, there we go. So
I love it.
Oh,
I love
man,
everything about what's happened in the last 45 seconds.
That's incredible. So that's it. And I wanted to really quickly touch. There was another video that Tolarian Community College put out about the gift pack. The MTG gift pack is a monster total fail. Is a huge, like, the land. At least the lands are worth a little something, and the foils aren't, and the posters kind of silly. Okay, and what is going on here? And the value is just not there.
But don't worry, we'll give one of those away as a giveaway in a future episode.
No, we did. We already did. That's the thing. Well, I mean, not that it's bad. It's an MTG product, and
it's certainly
the person who won it,
if it's free from us.
Right, the person who won it got it for free. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
That's value. But like,
we send it with love.
Right.
But the idea that I could have gotten a bunch of stickers and a bunch of card dividers and some card boxes, those days are gone. Now it's just Pokemon related whatever, which is really sad. Yeah, that said, we do have a winner for our copy of Dual Deck Merfolk versus Goblins, and that is Carl S. Carl S. from the USA. Will not tell me exactly where, but Carl S. is from the USA. I have your Twitter account, and I will contact you. I also have an email address here for you. So Carl S., congratulations on winning a copy of Merfolk versus Goblins.
Yeah, and that's more information on Carl S. than we do on Saffron Olive.
Yeah, that person is close to existing.
We've got a verifiable a social security number. We've got next of kin.
Well, we have all their data because Equifax was like, here, you want it? Here, it's cool. Here, have it. It's fine.
We've got his healthcare plan, which, by the way, November 1st, healthcare plan, everybody, go out and do it. Don't wait on it.
That's right. Oh, man, I just love somebody in the chat. Can we get a poster of Aaron with the text, Saffron Olive is just 6 Danish orphans in a trench coat? Yeah. 6 Danish orphans in a trench coat should have been the title of this episode.
Yeah.
It would have been insane.
That's our 6 seasons in the movie, is six Danish orphans in a trench coat.
Oh, my God.
That might be my new Twitter bio.
That was terrific.
I might change it.
Well, we got to turn the corner to the finisher. So last week, we missed a Magic Mike's live show and 2 Magic Mike's Top 10 because I was in Europe, which is where the history comes from, for Essen Spiel. And I just got back, and boy, are my arms tired. And by arms, I mean intestines, because I have been dying from food poisoning since like last Thursday, and I'm not kidding. That is real. I went to Germany, and just like the last 2 days were completely miserable, and then 20 hours of travel to come home. Now, our followers are constantly on the road for Magic, the traveling as well. So what tips and tricks do you have for our television viewers for avoiding, or listeners, for avoiding common journeying pitfalls? Ruben?
Well, being an expert on Las Vegas tourism, I thought I'd give you a Las Vegas specific hint.
Oh, cool.
So, you know, as happens in Las Vegas often, if you happen to find yourself accidentally having murdered a prostitute, what you should do, you heard what hey, look, it's Vegas. It happens. It's not an unusual occurrence, but here's just what you do. Right? If you happen to find yourself having accidentally murdered a prostitute, what you do is you bury the victim 12 feet underground, and then pile 6 feet of dirt on top, and then put a dead dog or cat down there, and then bury, and then fill in the rest of the hole. That way, the body-sniffing hounds will dig up the dead dog, and then the cops will just think it's a false positive. Now, I don't have foolproof evidence that this works every time, but so far, so good.
Oh my God! It's it's like Magic Mike's is a family-friendly show. Mommy, what's a dead hooker? Like, I mean, come on, guys.
First of all, didn't say hooker. Second of all,
helpful
hints. You wanted me to give out helpful, real-world advice to our friends and family, and I am providing a service to the community.
Aaron. Oh man, Aaron can't handle it. Neither can I.
Well, I've been doing a good amount of flying recently. So my best travel hack is to use orange peels and use the rind and rub it all over your face during those long layovers, because when you do that, then people will actually leave you alone. Yeah, just look insane.
Just go at it. Just whatever. No one cares. Oh my God. Well, if you get a chance to go, the best restaurant in Essen by far is a little place called Historisch Gasthaus. It is by far the best food I've had in my life. I'm not kidding. Ask for Uli. Get the Schnecken, which is snails, by the way.
No.
It's unbelievably awesome and totally worth the week of food poisoning that I got from eating garden pests. I'm just kidding. I don't believe I got sickness from there at all. I am seriously talking about Historisch Gasthaus is the best place. It's my favorite restaurant literally on the planet. And it is in Essen, and it was amazing. And I was supposed to go back there before I had to leave, but then I got sick, but I'm pretty sure, because I decided to eat a burrito in Germany. Okay? Don't eat Mexican food in Germany, guys. I'm telling you, it didn't work out. And I'm like,
it was from a truck.
It was from it was a food truck that was inside the convention center because, crazy.
Now, to be clear, I live in a predominantly Latino neighborhood, and I have enjoyed many treats from the taco truck. I chase that thing like it's the ice cream truck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, Orlando is a foodie paradise. So, trust me, there's some amazing food here.
Food truck festival in Vegas is one of my favorite times of the year. I just realized they hold that on the festival grounds where the shooting happened. I don't know if it's going to happen next year. But food truck fest, they get like 100 food trucks from the Southwest, and it's one of my favorite things of all time. Food off of trucks, if it doesn't kill you, is the best food on the planet. Don't get the Schnecken from the food trucks, though.
No, look, man, Schnecken comes from one place, and that's my buddy Uli.
And that's the Gasthaus. Don't get food truck Schnecken.
Oh, man.
It'll ruin you.
So, with that said, that ends another episode of Magic Mike's. Thank you for joining us here to discuss all things magic. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. And again, I'm so sorry about my internet. I will be home next week, and this shouldn't be an issue. Fantastic.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you. And I'm so sorry about Erin's internet. She'll be home next week. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault this week. I had to.
I'm the ugly friend this week. You get to stand by me and look pretty.
Wow. Yeah. Ruben,
wow.
The quality lack of potato.
I love you're doing the Donald Trump like that.
We have the best internet. No one has better internet than I do.
Your internet is perfect.
Who says that my internet has ever potatoed is fake news.
I think I would call Erin's internet a 10 out of 10. I would give her a score of 10 out of 10 for that internet. Okay, we're going to move on here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-host, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler, you guys for watching, and hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Visit our website at MagicMikesPodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters, or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv/MagicMikes, on Twitter at MagicMikesCast, on Reddit at Reddit.com/r/MagicMikes, and on Facebook at Facebook.com/MagicMikes. Talk to us privately at MagicMikesPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMikesPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week. Same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.
Get us that photographic evidence of Seth. The truth is out there, people.
6 Danish children.